Hello, my name is Jake Kurth. I'm with Leeds Forensic Systems. Thanks for coming to our live streaming training on our LCF3 comparison scope and the Olympus stream software. I hope your COVID crisis is going as well as it possibly can. Here at Leeds, what we've been doing is offering training, streaming, things like that for our customers out in the field, like yourselves. So yeah, thanks for joining in. Today's stream is going to be going over how to do or how to use some tips and tricks on the LCF3 for mounting samples, like moving things, manipulation, doing measurements, and then we're going to also be going in depth into the Olympus software. Leeds sells a variety of cameras. I would say on our LCF3, the two main cameras that we sell, or camera brands that we sell, are a custom camera that's manufactured for us by Spot Diagnostics, and then also the Olympus cameras. So that would be like the DP27, the DP74 cameras. Yeah, so today on my demonstration system, I've got a DP27. It's a good little camera from Olympus, and yeah, we can get cracking on that in a moment. Couple quick things. If you have any questions, I do have a live chat window. Hopefully we're going to see how all this works. We're still relatively, or I'm still relatively new to the whole live streaming aspect of things. But the idea here is that it looks like if you need to have a Google account. If you've got a Google account, you can post questions. And then in the chat, and then what I'll do is I'll answer them as I see them. So yeah, relax. Hope you have a coffee. Unlike your microscope, you can have a coffee and watch this live stream. And yeah, we can get started. So, okay, first thing I'm going to do is I'm actually going to move the camera around and give you a view of our comparison scope. We're going to go over the sample holder real quick. So let's see if I can figure out how to do this. We're going to do a transition. So this is actually, while I'm moving things around, this is a view from the Olympus stream software. And what I'm looking at right now is the right side of our comparison scope. And what you'll see is, just the main interface. In general, all of your controls in the Olympus software are on the right-hand side, where you have your camera controls, things like that. And then on the left-hand side is where your live window is. And we'll go through this in more depth in a moment once I get things hopefully set up in a good to use state here. So yeah, let's see if I can do this. I did practice this. This was rehearsed, I swear. All right, so we're going to transition over here. Okay, so this is our comparison scope. I'm going to go ahead and just zoom in on our universal holder here. For those who are watching, we happily also have a Parfocal Zoom on this camera. And we'll go through that in a moment for those who don't know what that means. But let's get that there. We're going to get some Michael Bay lens flare going on from our fluorescent light. That's something to point out. Our LCF3 comparison scope has a fluorescent light system. I'd say almost 95% of our systems we sell come with our fluorescent lights and then fiber optic lighting. It's just something that we found a lot of examiners really like. So yeah, let's just move this up a little bit, move this down. So what we have here, just to get started, is our universal holder. Move this back a little bit. The idea with the universal holder is it can hold anything from a 30,000th wire all the way up to a 10-gauge shotgun shell without requiring additional holders, devices, little clamps, things like that. A couple things just to show you guys, in case you're not aware, is anything that goes into the jaws on the universal holder, we've machined these jaws, and you can't really see it with the focus here, but the jaws are made out of a machinable plastic called Delrin. And so the idea is these jaws are softer than brass, so you're not going to leave tool marks on your tool marks. So it's been designed to hold cartridge cases from the outer diameter, such as this. You can also hold them from the inner diameter. What you can do is you can spread these jaws, and then there's a little locking screw here that you can tighten. And so the idea is that you can spread them open, lock it that way, so you can hold it from the inner diameter, And so then it holds position. This is really good for chamber marks. So looking for Beretta swooshes or Nike Cyclone, or not Nike Cyclones, Glock Cyclones. And then, of course, you can also, we have a machined area here, so you can actually hold it from the extractor groove. And I just like to show that with any training I give, just to help people become familiar with it, that, you know, try different things, try holding your sample a couple of different ways. All right, so moving right over to our next holder. We're just going to slide over. So really want to talk just quickly about how do we hold bullets and how do we measure bullets on the stage. We'll go into the software in a second, but just really quick. Leeds does have, excuse me about the mic, an on-center projectile holder, but we more commonly sell these pin mounts. And so essentially what these are roughly caliber matched steel pins that will allow you to put a little bit of bullet wax and then push your bullet right in on it. And it's a higher melting point wax, so over time it doesn't start to really droop on you. This setup's pretty nice when you're on the left side, because then we also have a digital scale that is ISO 17025 certified. And so the idea is if you have a crosshair, which comes with the scope mounted in the eyepiece, you can actually do a direct land and groove measurement just by lining up that crosshair on the start of your land impression, hitting the 0 button on the scale by moving the stage. And now when you move the stage, you can barely see it, but we're actually getting a direct measurement from the stage. And this measurement is NIST traceable and ISO 17025 2017 certified. So something real quick just to show you guys, it's my little teaser. We have a new lighting system. So this on our left side is the prototype, just to give you guys something cool to look at. Leeds has been developing a new fluorescent light that is LED based. It's not going to replace our fluorescent lights, it's going to add to them. But for those that are interested, we're eventually going to be coming out with a very even, very good LED-based fluorescent light. So, and that's what we have here set up. So, okay, so let's move to the software. So, 1 second, I'm going to move back, and we can get situated again. Oh, hey, also, real quick observation. If you're using one of our comparison scopes with manual stages, this is how you use your stage movement. Something I just want to tell people is remember that the stages move the same way. So this motion always makes it go to the right goes right, left goes left, and then this motion always makes the stage translate on the y-axis towards you, and this motion makes it go that way. For those switching over from older Leicas, this can be a bit of an adjustment at first, but just remember the stages move the same. So, okay, so moving right along, let's see if I can transition back to that software view. This is the Olympus software, as promised. The Olympus software may look like a lot. The stream software may look like a lot, but it's fairly intuitive once you know where everything is and what you're looking for. So this is your primary window. And I know my picture's covering it up, and I'll move that in a moment. But this is your primary window, your live window, and then you have your camera controls over here, and then you kind of work your way down through it. So depending on what model of camera you have, this software interface may look a little bit different. For example, the DP74 has some more features built into it. But primarily, this is going to be how your software looks. So a couple things to point out is your magnification controls are located in the upper right-hand corner in this section right here. So essentially what it means is whenever you change your magnification, so if we go to, let's say, 6x, you want to make sure that you change, if you're going to be doing any measurement, you want to make sure that you change your magnification here to 6x as well. So that tells, then it says, are you sure? Make sure you move to 6x and do that. One of the things you'll also notice is while our microscope's zoom knobs have machine etched the full system magnification. In the software, and that includes the eyepieces on our zoom knobs, in the software, it doesn't include the eyepieces. And that's just to deal with the number of digits that the Olympus software allow us to display. We like to display 6x all the way up to 102, but we're limited to these 3 decimal points. So what you do is just make sure, take whatever is on your zoom knob, divide by 10 for 10x eyepieces, and then that's what your magnification setting is for your zoom. Another thing you'll see here is kind of moving to the camera control area. This is really where you have your capture button, your live button, and this is also where your white balance is. And this is probably the easiest way to do the white balance. Essentially what you do is there's this little icon right here, and you'll see there's a tiny little drop down next to it where it has this automatic white balance. Do not recommend using the automatic white balance. What I recommend doing is white balance on ROI and having that selected. And you'll see when you select that, you have your cursor changes. And now what you do is you teach it something that's white. So you just put something that's white, like a business card, into the field of view, and then you draw a box. And then it samples that for your white balance, and then that's our new white balance. I don't really like that white balance, so let's do that again. There we go. I moved it last time before it calculated. So that's the basics of the white balance. To the right of that, for those who are interested in just taking, there's a technique you can do, and I'll go over it in a moment, but you also have a focus indicator, so I'll just flip that on. The focus indicator is a little blue bar, and it's located here. And essentially what it is it's showing you contrast. So as you move the stage in and out of focus, you'll see that little blue bar. If it's more in focus, it fills up and gets bigger. And if it's more out of focus, that little blue bar, once we hit refresh, gets less. And so you can use that as a trick to try to make sure that you're actually in focus or not on your sample. You can do that. Generally what I recommend doing, though, is if you load a new sample, and for any sample, what I recommend doing is actually just zooming in to nearly your highest magnification, and then focusing on a feature. Generally, you want a flat feature. And then when you zoom out, the image is going to be remaining in focus. And that's part of our Parfocal Zoom optics. So that zoom in, focus, zoom out, and you'll stay in focus. And you'll actually be at your best focus. And that's something I do recommend. The one I meant to show you guys is, as opposed to just the focus indicator, is this toggle between colored image and black and white image. It can be very useful for people who are interested in taking black and white photography. I know some examiners that I've worked with out in California, for example, prefer to have black and white photos. You can certainly do that. Moving through things, we'll go over a couple of these options in a moment. But really, this is where your snapshot, so it allows you to take a capture. You hit the capture button, the camera takes a picture, and it names it according to a naming convention that you've set up. And we'll go through that in a moment. But you can see it's kind of like a Adobe Photoshop or Internet Explorer, where it has a tab system that builds up along the top. And so if you change magnifications, let's just zoom in a little bit, set our live image up, and then choose, we're at 14x, so 1.4x, and then capture. What you'll see is now it's captured another image and it's built it up along the tab. Cool trick if you guys ever take a bunch of pictures and you forgot what magnification you captured it at. You can actually right-click on the captured picture and go to, I think it's Properties. And what that will show is all the metadata of that captured picture. And so that can be helpful if you're taking lots and lots of other pictures. And then the way to close that metadata is just to hit this little X button. OK, so going back to our live view, one of the things you've probably noticed is I'm not doing a lot of changes in exposure. I'm just changing magnification, but I'm not actually doing much with the exposure. And that's because I have my setup on auto exposure. And auto exposure works really well, but sometimes it gets confused. So for example, you'll notice there's this white bounding box that I have over my cartridge case. That's based on this region that it's using to calculate the auto exposure. And that's really important if you have really big changes, for example, or differences between what you're interested in and then the background. So for example, if I'm zoomed all the way out on my sample and I was using the default full image auto exposure, because there's so much darkness in the background, it's trying to bring, and it's calculating auto exposure off the full image, it brings the whole exposure level up automatically. And that can be kind of frustrating. So generally what I recommend doing is changing it from the full image to a spot 30%, so it's just 30% square that you can move around, or the spot 1%. And the spot 1% gives you a little bit finer control, and then you can just move that around, that region of interest for auto exposure. You can just move it around, and then the system will use that to automatically calculate what your intensity should be. And that's helpful for when you're doing a lot of magnification changes. And then you want fine control. For example, we're interested in this overexposed area. Conversely, you can turn all that off and go into manual mode and manually adjust your exposure time. But what happens there is you'll almost constantly be needing to change the exposure time, because as you change your magnification, there's less light or more light moving through the system. Tools for your toolbox. You have a lot of them. Another quick note just on the auto exposure when you're using it. You have the ability to trim the auto exposure. And that's what this exposure compensation down here does. So if you're looking at it and you're like, you know, let's go back to spot 30%, you know, it's just not bright enough. I have the right area that I'm interested in. I'm interested in this whole area, getting that perfectly exposed. It's just not bright enough. That's where you have that exposure compensation, where you can come in and you can either boost it up a little bit, or you can actually compensate it down a little bit. So that gives you fine-tuning control of the auto exposure. This crop tool simply just crops the image where you're looking at. I generally recommend not using it. Really, I mean, you could always do that in Photoshop or afterwards. What I would recommend doing is taking your full image. On that note, you'll see here's our live movie image, and so that is our live preview. The Olympus cameras are really fast compared to the older Firewire cameras that you might be coming from. But if it's still not fast enough at the live resolution, at its full resolution, you can decrease the resolution of the live image. But you'll notice the snapshot or capture is still at its full resolution. And so this can be helpful, just getting a smoother motion, moving things around. Generally speaking, though, at least with the DP27, it's fast enough at full resolution that I just leave it at that full resolution. Something to watch out for if you are changing resolutions is this little chain icon on the right side. And that just if it's a solid chain, then it keeps them together. And if you turn it off, if you turn it on, it makes this captured image be the same as the live resolution. If you turn it off, then you can have different resolutions for captured versus live. Yeah. So just a quick point about the snapshot. If you are using a DP74 camera, which is a really, really interesting camera, it's a pixel shifting camera. And so instead of just taking a snapshot, what it can do is it can actually move the sensor and oversample an area to build up really high megapixel counts. This is where you have that control of that. So if you go to the snapshot resolution, if you were on a DP74, you would then see a list of higher and higher resolutions that you can choose from, all the way up to, I think it's 20.3 megapixels or something like that. You'll also see on the DP74 that it has this thing called 3 CMOS. So it'll have the resolution, parenthetical, 3 CMOS. And essentially what it's doing is the pixel shifting, but it's moving the sensor in a way so it's sampling just red, just green, and just blue. And so that's for a really high color fidelity. So neat comment there for you. All right, so HDR. HDR is a useful tool. Let me just make sure I got my windows back. When do you expect the new Lightning to be available? Aaron Mulligan. Thank you, Aaron. Thanks for joining us. The new Lightning. Oh, I don't know. For connectors, I presume is what you're asking. The camera manufacturers right now are building USB 3 cables, USB 3 cameras, to my knowledge. I suspect we're a ways off from moving to Lightning. You know, it took a while for the camera makers to catch up and produce USB 3. I mean, as of, I think, maybe 6 years ago, we were still having FireWire cameras. But no idea when Lightning's coming out. It'd be really fast, though, really fast. All right, so HDR is essentially what it does is it takes a series of pictures at differing exposures and then pushes them all together. And it analyzes this pushed together image to find the pixels that have the best neither overexposed or underexposed. And so the end effect is that it's a really good way, or can be a really good way, to get rid of hot spots or glare off of a sample. So for example, in this example, we have this kind of glare, which is a direct reflection of our light source. And the HDR will help just even everything out. So what we can do, with the Olympus software, I was playing around with it, and what I've discovered is that the Olympus software generally wants you to have, for their HDR, things a little underexposed, because then it goes up above where your exposure is set. So for this one, what I would do is I'd set it to spot 1%. I'd put our little exposure control, or auto exposure, where that glare was. And now that I've turned on Enable HDR, now I can click this HDR button. And what it's doing is on the bottom of the screen, you can see it. It's using that fast frame rate to take a series of pictures. And then this is our end result. So it's just kind of deglared the picture. So that's something I recommend playing with. This can be really helpful when you're looking for chamber marks. So we can actually show you that example right here. So let's go back to our live image. So I've rotated the cartridge case. So I did that thing where I'm holding it from the inside of its diameter. And what I'm going to do is just bring our sample quickly into focus. And let's maybe zoom in a little bit, use that Parfocal Zoom optic. Zoom in a little bit beyond what we're going to be working on. And now I'm going to zoom out. So this is kind of the, I don't know, kind of the typical problem with imaging with a lot of cameras. Through the eyepieces, you're able to see a very big dynamic range. The human eye is really good at building up high dynamic range images in our brains. But cameras struggle with it. So for example, with my little exposure control, I could put it here, and I can see the sidewall very well in the area that's not directly illuminated. But if I place it here to try to find detail there, now I only get the area that's direct reflection. And so what I can do, and there's my little tornado, I think. So what I can do is by using my HDR and capturing that image, it's going to move the exposures above and below. And so we get a a better dynamic range picture. So something to think about, something to play with. You can do things manually, where you manually set your exposure limits. I won't get into that right now. I suggest just playing with it and see how it goes. And know, you can always disable it. You can always disable that HDR, and you'll be good to go. All right, so let's go back to our live image. Let's switch over to my other side of the comparison scope. Just going to move this down. This is my little bullet example. Again, my little exposure box, I'm going to set it to 30%, so I average a larger area. And then, yeah, let's zoom in, focus, and then zoom out. So what's kind of neat is the Olympus software allows you to do a couple of things for what I would call automated annotations. So you'll see here down at the bottom of my screen, I have this, Olympus calls it an info stamp. And what's neat is it's very customizable based on your need. And it's pulling automatically information from the metadata of your captured pictures. So if you, for example, have a user login, you can have it display the author, J. Kurth, date, the zoom magnification, notes, things like that, as opposed to taking a picture and then manually going in and typing things. The way you gain the info stamp information, or you modify the info stamp information, is by navigating to Tools. And it's an option, so Options. And then the info stamp. And then you'll have your general. And then this is where you can place that info stamp. So if you want it in the upper left corner, you can choose that. Upper right corner, lower left corner, that type of thing. You can also change the color of the info stamp. The properties of the info stamp are where you pick the metadata that you want to pull over. And this is really slick. I like this a lot. It does take a little bit of getting used to, but I like it a lot. So you just have to navigate through this long list of things to find what you're looking for. But in general, I've found most people to use name, which is the file name, author, creation date, note, and I'll show you that in a moment, and then have that zoom magnification. So then it shows on your live images or your captured images what magnification you were at. There's a lot here that you can add. Like you can have, I think that's like company, so if you wanted your agency to automatically appear on every single note that you capture, you can do that. What note is actually this little field down here. And if you have a DP74 versus a DP27, it's going to be way down. You'll have to use the scroll wheel on the right-hand side and navigate all the way down. And that's just because there's more optional controls that get stacked up. So if I wanted to add something like a case number or a general thought, and I see Aaron's question, yes, it does. The Spot software is our other camera that we saw a lot of. This automated metadata annotation is available in Spot Advanced, and that's very doable. Yeah, the prototype lights. We've done our first prototype production run. If you're interested in evaluating them, we can definitely send them to you. We're looking for feedback on the lights, so please send me an email if you're interested at jkurth@leedsmicro.com. And our intent is, yeah, that's a great idea to bring it to AFTI or any of the other meetings. I hope AFTI's happening this year. I guess we will see about that. And another quick note is if anybody has questions, Aaron, and just see your follow-up, please feel free to email me and we can set up another training thing too to go through how to do the Spot software advanced features. So in our note section in the Olympus software, you can simply type something in like case number, thoughts, how you would want some more customized information to appear in the software. So we'd call it like case number, or however, that type of thing. And what will happen is you'll notice it hasn't updated on our live image. It will, when you hit the capture or the snapshot button, it'll be on that picture. So we're going to go ahead and hit snapshot. And then it automatically switched from our live view to our captured view, and then you'll see the case number. Jake's, I can't spell my name apparently. Jake's a cool dude. Similarly, this little scale bar, I made a miscalibration at, it looks like 14x. This is not correct. But the little scale bar is also an option. So the way you go there is you go to Tools, Options, and you'll see here's the little scale bar. And you can change the font, you can change the line thickness, the width, things like that. It defaults, it's going to default to, if it's in inches, it's going to display things as mil. Even if you're measuring in inches, it's just something how Olympus has set up their software. Quick thing before we go on to annotations and measurement, you'll notice how I made my custom file name. And you can do this, a lot of labs will have like a case number, user initials, things like that for every picture that you captured. You can do this yourself also in your software. And the way you do that is, it's a little different. You don't go to options. What you need to do is navigate to your camera control and navigate to your acquisition settings. In the acquisition settings, this is where you set up your document naming convention. So you can see here I have Jake case test 06, and this counter automatically gets filled out. Every time you restart, every time you close the software and reopen it, this counter will reset, if you've chosen to reset automatically. So you can name it however you'd like here. And that can be very helpful if you're trying to just very quickly get case information into your file name, but then also have that information appear using the info stamp automatically. So let's take another picture. I'm going to switch back to my live view. So a quick note, I am not a firearm examiner, and I am not going to try to match these. So one of the neat things while I'm getting this set up with the LCF3 is, in addition to the optics being parfocal, meaning that when you zoom in and then zoom out, things remain in focus. Yeah, I don't think that's a match, but in addition to parfocal zoom optics, we also have something that we call Parcentric Zoom optics. And what that means is when we have fine stria aligned on the comparison scope, and you're at a high power, when you zoom out, for the most part, those stria are going to remain aligned in the vertical axis. And so this is really helpful if you're doing CMS or really any fine pattern matching. When changing magnifications, it doesn't totally reset your alignment. And so you can move around. You'll see there might be some walking left to right, but for the most part, I just set this up this morning, your dividing line, your stria will remain aligned. And so that's something just to consider and use while you're doing casework. So we've set up our new setup. I'm going to slightly adjust the focus here. And now what I'm going to do is I'm going to change my magnification. I'm at 18x on both sides, so 1.8. And now I'm going to take a picture. So you'll see it's all updated with the info stamp on how it's been captured. And you'll see that scale bar has also been automatically updated and displaying 20 mil. Let's say I want to come in and do some measurements. I could do land and groove measurements on the stage here on the left side using that scale. You can also bring things up for quick access and toolbars. So if you go to Tools or View, Toolbars, we're going to bring up our measurement toolbar. You'll see now we have this little toolbar which has all of our measurement options. And let's go to View, Toolbars, and let's bring up our drawing toolbar. And so drawing is actually our annotation tools, the ability to, oh Jesus, to draw arrows, boxes, that type of thing. So with our annotation tools, we can come in and we can draw an arrow. Again, it's very dark, so we can come in and right-click. We're going to go for Properties, and this is where we're going to make that thing really thick. Lines, I generally recommend doing at least 5 pixels, just so they show up. And if you right-click on it again, you'll see how there's this set as default for drawings. And so what that will do is allow you to make drawings look like that. Once you're done doing your annotations and drawings, what you can do, if that looks good to you, there's other annotations too you can do. If you wanted to do the John Madden approach to firearms examination, you know, hey, look at this. That's a match. Done. Life is good. You can do that. There's a lot of annotation tools. I suggest just trying them out. Probably the one you're going to use the most of is the text box. And again, just like Microsoft Word, you just draw a text box and you write your text in it. Whenever you type into the text box, it's always going to appear as a white text box with black text, regardless of what your settings are. So that's why it looks like this. Now when I click off, again, the text is black by default. So you want to right-click on it or click on it, and then you'll have these controls here. So if we select if we click on it, let me get this right, Properties, let's do this. There we go. You click on the text box, and then you click the fill field or the line field or the text color field, and then that'll update it. If you double click on it, it's just going to bring you into that editor. That's how you do the annotations. That's how you do the measurements, the info stamp. You know, a lot of capability there. Let's say you've taken all your pictures that you want for the day, but you haven't saved any of them yet. You've annotated, you've done your drawings, that type of thing. You can save it like it is right now, but if you open it in any other program, you're not going to see any of your annotations. And so the thing you need to do when you're really done with it and ready to go is you need to basically, some programs call it merging, other programs call it burning, but basically what we're going to do is just merge all these layers together permanently, and so your annotations will always appear as part of that picture. So the way you do that is you go to Image, and you're going to go into Burn in Info. When you do that, it's going to say, hey, quick warning, are you sure you really want to do this? Because this is permanent. And the answer is, if you really believe you're ready to go, and you don't need to save an original copy that hasn't been already annotated, then you click yes. And then what you'll see is now this file has been permanently updated with this information. You can save it and move on with your day. I think a lot of people, most of the time, they're going to be moving around, taking pictures as they work. For those who are interested in saving automatically every time they capture a picture, the way you do that is you go to Tools, Options, Images, probably underneath Acquisition Settings. Yeah, okay, yep, that's where it is. I did the same thing I warned people against about how to set up your naming convention. So to do automatic saving, you need to click the Acquisition Settings, open the saving, and this is where you'll see how the automatic saving is set up. Right now it's set to not automatically save, but if I wanted to, I could turn on File System, and that's using just Windows File System, and you would choose what file type you want it to save as, and this is where you would then choose the path or the directory. So some laboratories, you'll have folders for every case on like a public server, and this is where you could navigate to that case on whatever server. And so every time you capture then, let's just go straight to my desktop, call this test. So now what'll happen, and I hit OK, now what'll happen is when I'm working and I'm moving things around, looking at magnifications, trying different things out, every time I hit capture or the snapshot button, it will use my naming convention that I set up, and it will automatically save that file with that naming convention to whatever directory I put it in. That can, it can be risky if you take a lot of pictures, you'll fill up your server, but that's definitely a tool you can use. There's other things you can do with the software, but that's primarily what I was trying to go for today, was just kind of show you guys taking pictures, annotations. Remember to do that thing where you zoom in, focus, zoom out to make sure that you're in focus and your best focus. And really kind of just feel free to play with the system. Toolbars are definitely going to be your best friend. Just remember, if just navigating to the measurement capability and then the annotations, and just remember to use those toolbars or those tools. And then I think just the big thing is to remember to burn in your annotation information. That's primarily it. If you guys have any other further questions or would like to have more hands-on, we can definitely do additional YouTube streams. We're also very available to do a GoToMeeting. Leeds has a GoToMeeting account, which while this works well to register or work with a large audience, GoToMeeting can be a better program for having a one-on-one work with. I'm sorry about the delay in getting back to your question, but yes, the Stream Basic software can do focus stacking, but it's a paid module. Actually, I think Olympus has one of the best extended focus features out there. You simply just click a button and you just move that focus. And then as you move the focus, it intelligently puts everything together. The Olympus software also has a pretty sophisticated panorama mode, and it's a manual mode, and it's also really slick. Again, you just click a button, and then as you move the stage around, it will allow you to do a panorama. If you have any other further questions, please feel free to email me, jkurth@leedsmicro.com. And yeah, if you have any questions or have any other training things that we can help with during this time period, please let us know. And we'll be here. Okay, thanks everyone.